Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crimes, Killers, Cults,
and beer.
and Beer. It's just two crazy Florida men drinking beer and talking about true crime. And I'm Bill.
And I'm Paul.
And we went 2 weeks in a row without introducing ourselves at the beginning. We did it at the end in part one of Willie Pickton, and we didn't do it at all in part two. Oh boy, so we did it right this time.
By now, hopefully, they know who we are.
Yeah.
And if not, well, you just need to tune in a little bit more.
Yeah, listen to every single episode that we put out multiple times on different platforms.
Yeah.
By the way, I won Powerball last night.
Ooh.
I got two numbers, which won me $4.
Oh, shit. Get you another ticket.
Yep. So, anyway, this is a long one. This is the longest one yet. It's probably going to be the longest one of the entire series. So we're just going to dive into it with not a lot of ado at all. So here we go.
Yeah.
Part 3 of Willie Pickton. At this point, there's definitely going to be a part 4 and maybe even a part 5 because this case is huge. But after the series is over, we've got a crazy World War I story for you that includes zombies, and it's all true. We also have Jody Plauché coming back to CKCB to cover the Baton Rouge sick freak. Hasn't been 5 minutes yet.
That guy.
Sean Gillis. So bear with us. And we hope that you're enjoying the series, and we hope you'll continue to listen to its conclusion, whenever that may be. But the action really kicks into gear in this episode. So, So here we go. Part 3. September 1997, Renata Bond was working the street in downtown East Side as usual, and a car pulled up next to her, and she recognized the driver. It was Dave Pickton. She hadn't seen him in a while, but she got in, and he offered her $100 for a blowjob when the going rate was $40. Dave smelled bad too, so I guess it kind of ran in the family. And she said, thanks, but no thanks. But then Dave pulled out a half a gram of cocaine, and she still refused.
They must have really smelled bad. But I don't think there's ever a moment they smelled okay.
Well, yeah, they live on a pig farm. But she figured her roommate, Sherry Irving, might be interested. And Sherry owed Renata money. And Dave doubled the offer plus the cocaine, and Sherry agreed, and Renata said that they'd go together because they were both leery about going all the way out to Port Coquitlam. So they hopped in the car and off they went. And when they got to the farm, Dave revealed that the blowjob wasn't for him, it was for his brother Willie. So Sherry went into the trailer with Willie, and she said goodbye to Renata, and that was the last time anybody saw Sherry. But Dave then began finding work for Renata, and before too long, Dave was using her to find dates for Willie and giving her finder's fee for every woman that paid Willie a visit. Next to go missing was 24-year-old Marnie Fry. She was a native, and her father was a fisherman. Her mother and father split up when she was young, and Marnie had gotten into drugs when she was a teenager. She had an arrest record, and her father was constantly trying to get her back onto the straight and narrow. He even went so far as to have Marnie arrested once. Tough love, you know. Yeah. But I mean, he's doing what he thought was right. And at that point, Marnie told her father that she was pregnant, and after the baby was born, Marnie began working downtown East Side. May of 1997, she went to detox, and she left downtown East Side and got a place in Burnaby, but she was still working for a pimp, and she was making porn movies as well. August 8th, she overdosed on drugs and went to the hospital, but survived. August 29th, her mother hadn't heard from her, and reported her missing. And the police told her she's probably on a cruise. Call back after Christmas.
Freaking cruise.
Oh, they've always got a zinger. And oh man, that one pissed you off a little bit. You just wait. This one, they really, really, really show their colors in this one.
If you're in Australia, it'd be like, hey, he's on a walkabout.
Australia cops don't fuck around, though. But in September of 1997, 32-year-old Cindy Beck went missing. She got pregnant as a teen and put the baby up for adoption, and then she fell into with a bad crowd, got into drugs, and wound up in downtown East Side, leaving behind a family who loved her deeply. Same old story. Cindy Felix disappeared November 26, 1997. She also had a serious drug problem and was working to feed both her and her boyfriend's addiction. Her mother went to the police, and by now people were getting really pissed at the police for not taking the disappearances seriously. 12 women had disappeared so far that year, including Cindy, but number 13 was right around the corner. 25-year-old Andrea Borehaven was next, disappearing in late November, early December. By now, there was a downtown East Side missing women message board up, and everybody who had been documented, everybody was documented along with write-ups about who these women were.
Now they're tallying them up.
Well, the people are, not the police.
Yeah. Someone's got to.
Yeah. Willie was seen a lot in downtown East Side with the sex workers, but around this time he was feeling a little sick. And he learned from his doctor that he had hepatitis C, and Willie blamed it on Sandra Ringwald, saying that her dirty blood must have given it to him. And this was according to Lisa Yelds.
Hep C. Imagine that.
He apparently wasn't horny one night, and this is a story that he gets all giddy when he tells. Like, oh, Willie the prankster. Yeah, without the murder, the Picktons would just be your local funny family, you know?
Yeah.
Without the murder, without all the crime and everything, they'd just be the crazy, like, I don't know, the freaking Beverly Hillbillies. Or something like that. I don't know. But he wasn't horny one night, but he wanted to have a different kind of fun. So he grabbed 2 piglets and he headed to downtown East Side and let the pigs loose in the street. And they took off running all over the place. And finally, they wore themselves out, and the Humane Society was able to catch them. But this is how he recalled it in an interview later. Take it, Paul.
Willie's eyes twinkled with delight, and he chuckled as he regaled under an undercover police officer with a tale of many years later. I was an asshole in December 24th, 1997. I was a really hard ass. I was a really hard asshole. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the streets, not a soul to be found except 2 little pigs and 2 working girls. It was comical for the first little while, until tragedy set in. So, what happened? Is one of the cops chasing the pigs up the hill, the other cops chasing the pigs down the hill. Now, when he goes down the hill, man, is this from his right? Did he write this?
Yeah, he wrote this.
Wow. It's not as bad as the other one, but I would love to see him wipe out. Anyway, come across here. It was comical for the first little while, but I kind of liked it. I liked it. Yeah. How often do you see a little pig chasing after a pig? Fucking pop show. Anyways, this ended up in Gastown, and I was on the other side of Hastings. So, anyways, I let them go and got the fuck out of there. And then it says the pigs are in the SPCA. And we're waiting for the owner to come forward. I said, yeah, right. And that was December 24th, 1997.
I gotta give credit where credit's due here, because I think it's in I don't know, part 4 of last podcast on the left series.
Yeah.
Henry Zabrowski he got his hands on Willie's official autobiography that's like really hard to get, and he read a paragraph on it, and it is just, you think that was bad. Oh my God. And you think BTK's rambling was bad. And it was like torture just listening to it. I don't know how the hell Henry got through it. Anyway. Yeah, there's a free plug for you there at last podcast.
Yeah.
Willie's car was spotted in downtown East Side that night, and the reporter actually got pictures of the cop trying to catch a piglet. He wasn't doing very well either, and the picture was in the paper the next day.
Well, now we know who let the pigs out.
I'll tell the Baja men, but I don't think that they were concerned with pigs.
Who let the pigs out?
The day after Willie let the pigs out, 38-year-old Carrie Koski was with her family at Christmas, and she was a sweet girl growing up, but she always had the absolute worst taste in men. She was beaten by one, driven crazy by another, and who eventually killed himself, and was coaxed into drugs by another, which landed her in downtown East Side. She also had 3 girls, and after going back after Christmas, she was last seen on January 7th, 1998, or so her mother suspected. It was just a guess. But according to police, when her mother had reported her missing, she was probably just out partying. Carrie's mother had to break it to her kids that their mother was gone, and she promised Carrie's girls that she would never stop looking for their mom.
Oh.
She's just out partying.
Yeah. She went on another cruise.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised a cop hasn't said, well, she probably cleaned herself up and joined a convent and was out on missionary work.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that wasn't said. Carrie was the last to appear in 1997, and her mother had given her a check for Christmas, but it was never cashed. So it's very likely that she disappeared before 1997 ended. First disappeared in 1998 was 46-year-old Inga Hall. She was born in Germany in 1952, but she had come to Canada with her family as a child. They lived in Ontario. She was rebellious and left home at 14 years old. She got married, had a daughter, and then got hooked on heroin and cocaine. Her marriage ended, and her daughter went to her parents. And that was how she wound up in downtown East Side. I mean, I picture like a meat grinder when I think of downtown East Side. And that has nothing to do with Willie. It's like these women were being fed into the meat grinder that is downtown East Side. It's just, they're just churning them out,
Yeah.
That's what I picture when I picture this. But she disappeared February 26, 1998.
Is there any proof that Willie killed all these women?
No, but he probably killed the majority of them. Well, he killed the majority of them. Lots of remains were found on the farm that couldn't be identified. And remember, he admitted to killing 49.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Also, one thing that I forgot to put in the notes, several years prior, there was a skull that was found on the road to the rendering plant.
Yeah.
And like it was a skull, and it was carbon dated that it was dated that the victim died like several years prior, but there was still flesh on it. It was obvious that it had been in a freezer.
Whoa.
But the thing is the skull was cut in half, like at a 90-degree angle.
Huh.
That's something that pig butchers use. They cut the pig skull in half. That that comes back later, because when they're doing the evidence and everything, they ran DNA on this, and they on the skull. Well, there's half of a skull, and then later on, a rib was found on the property. and the DNA matched the DNA of the skull.
Oh,
So probably what happened is Willie was on his way to the rendering plant, realized he had that, and he's like, well, I can't take that, so he just chunked it out the window.
oh, jeez. Oh man, off you go with your evidence.
Yep. But yeah, that one was positively linked to Willie because, well, the DNA matched the skull and the rib that was found.
Damn.
March 21st, 1998, it dawned on Renata Bond that Sherry Irving had never come back after being dropped off with Willie. She reported that to the police. She reported to the police what had happened the last time she saw her, and no word on if the police ever contacted the Picktons, let alone paid them a visit. And they brushed Renata off when she asked them about it later. She joined the circus.
Yeah.
Now, all these stories of women who disappeared, it doesn't say if Willie ever dealt with a pimp. And I'm guessing that he didn't, going back to the discussion we had in part 2. If he had dealt with a pimp would know where his associate was going and who she was going with.
Yeah, not only that, the pimp would have probably had someone along for security purposes because of all of these missing women.
Yeah, especially going that far out, from downtown East Side Vancouver all the way out to Port Coquitlam, which is like 30 miles.
Mm-hmm. These were all these women were, independent free agents.
Yeah, some were with pimps. I mean, they're pimps. Pimps do come up in this story. But the next woman to go missing was the common law wife of a pimp and a drug dealer named Bernie DeBow. Mm-hmm. Sarah Jane DeVries disappeared on the morning of April 14th, and she had gone out to work. She'd gone out to work one morning to meet a regular named Sam Lee. They had gone to a flop house that was used by several different women. And a friend of Sarah's came in and found Sarah fighting with Lee, and she called for help, and the two subdued Lee and stole his wallet and took off.
Yeah.
But later that evening, another friend saw somebody pick her up, and they stopped at Bernie's house, and she ran in, came back out with a coat, and they drove off, and she never returned. I wonder who she drove off with.
Yeah.
Sarah was native and black mix, and by all accounts, she was gorgeous. She was 28 years old and had 2 kids that lived with her parents. And she came from a wealthy and well-educated family, but she too fell in with a bad crowd, and you know the rest. But Sarah was also HIV positive. And when she went missing, it was reported to the police, and I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count as to what they did.
She was on a cruise.
She joined the military. She joined the army.
Yeah. She was on holiday.
She joined the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
But her friends went to the press, and Vancouver province reporter Frank Luba wrote a good story about Sarah's disappearance, but the article didn't mention any of the other missing women. July of 1997, Lincoln Clarks, a portrait photographer, began taking pictures of the sex workers in downtown East Side. He was going to write about who the women were and how they got there. When he started taking their pictures and developed them, he looked at the emptiness in their eyes, and it hurt him. He wanted to help them, and he became well known to a lot of the women, and he was their friend. He genuinely cared about them.
Yeah.
The next woman to disappear was Sheila Egan. And Clarks had taken her picture as well, and the last time anybody had heard from her was July 14th, 1998. And that was her parents. And they reported her missing on the 16th because she hadn't called, although her file says that she went missing on August 5th. The police never once had anything else to say about her to her family or anybody else. Once again, I need to reiterate that it's important to me to tell every victim's name. That's something that I've done in every single case that we've covered on this podcast, and I'm not going to back off of it now just because there's so many in this case.
Yeah. And for most of his spree, he could do whatever he wanted with the lack of empathy from the police and how cunning he was.
Yeah, and that there's a reason why some people think that he had accomplices, which he may not have had accomplices as far as the actual killing, but we're going to get to his accomplices. Dave obviously is one of them.
Yeah.
But nobody actually saw a woman get into the truck with Willie other than the two women that had survived. As far as like, say, hey, that's Willie Pickton, or that's the stinky pig guy, or whatever.
Yeah, he had Dave recruiting for him. And he had Renata. He had hired Renata to do it.
Yep. But Dave never admitted to knowing anything about what Willie was doing. I personally think he did. Although during all of this, he was probably getting tanked at Piggy's Palace.
Possibly he didn't know, but that would also mean Willie picked up a lot more on his own.
You're right. But we'll never know unless Dave or Willie makes a deathbed confession. Dave's still alive, and in 2012, he's tried to set up the Pickton Foundation to a charity to help with water well drilling.
Yeah.
There's a Facebook page from that time with about 20 people, 20 followers on it. And there's very little activity on it at all. And it links a website to the foundation, but it's a dead link.
Yeah.
I was looking on Reddit, and some people believe that Willie took the fall for a much larger criminal enterprise, and that not only Dave, but the Hells Angels were involved in the said enterprise. And I'm not so sure I agree with that, because where's the profit in killing sex workers?
Yeah.
There's none. There's literally none.
Yeah.
What it boiled down to was, by 1998, is the Vancouver Police Department was well aware that these women were disappearing, and they just didn't want to admit that there was a serial killer at work. Even though the RCMP's version of the BSU had told them that there was one. Yeah. I listened to part 2, and I'm just going to own up to this. Yeah. All through, whenever I talked about the BSU in part 2, I said the BHU. I don't know why I said that. But I was listening to it just, like I listened to all the episodes just to make sure that everything's fine with it. And I kept saying BHU in part 2.
It happens.
But even in 1998, a cop, Dave Dixon, went to VPD Sergeant Doug McKay Dunn, and he was trying to sound the alarm, but it fell on deaf ears. He said that there was an unusual amount of missing women from the area, and he began going over his theory and pointing out that there was a major spike in disappearances beginning in 1995. He also noted that personal belongings, money, uncashed welfare checks, things like that were being left behind in the rooms, and not one of them had packed a bag for a long trip. He had gone through a bad date list, which Willie was on, but none of these people panned out. VPD was aware of Willie, but not as a suspect in the disappearances, but because of his reputation of his farm and Piggy's Palace being, a major party spot. But there's like what, 5 or 6 big cities in all of Canada. You've got Vancouver, you've got Toronto, Montreal, whatnot.
Yeah.
During that time, all the other cities, all the other large metropolitan areas in Canada, they had missing people, but it was like 1 or 2 a year. But then you got Vancouver over here with 15 a year and growing, climbing.
Yeah.
So and you don't want to tell me there's a serial killer there? I mean, Montreal, Toronto, and all those, they have prostitution. Yeah, they have drugs.
Yeah.
But the missing person cases were few and far between in those other cities. But so what makes Vancouver? I mean, hell, even in Los Angeles didn't have as many people disappearing as Vancouver did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in the 80s they did, the 70s and the 80s, because there was like 30,000 serial killers at work at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time. But
And at that point, they were already spoken for. They're like, yeah. They had the evidence. They just didn't disappear. And I have no idea. Fell off the face of the earth.
she joined NASA for a moon project.
Oh. Yep.
I'm going to keep trying getting more and more ridiculous with each little theory that I have.
Probably ones they thought up of.
But he had taken this to the RCMP, but they just looked at him as a beat cop and didn't take him seriously. Now, the RCMP, they were, looking at this. They were at least giving it attention, whereas Vancouver Police Department, hey, there's nothing. It's just normal. It's just normal. But finally, McKay Dunn agreed with Dixon, and they decided to bring Kim Rossmo, who we discussed in part 2. Kim Rossmo was in Washington, D.C., learning from the BSU, and he wouldn't be back in Vancouver until September. But he agreed to dig into these cases when he got back. Now, keep in mind, it was the RCMP that contacted Rossmo, not VPD. The Sun newspaper had been printing stories based on the families of these women who had been calling the paper repeatedly. They released a scathing article pointing out Dixon's finding about the spike in disappearances based on their own research. And they also compared the disappearing, the missing persons cases in the other major cities in Canada to Vancouver. Mm. And 49 women had disappeared since 1972. And a few days after the report came out, Sheila Egan had disappeared. And she was the 5th in 1998. But 49, now 50, that was even wrong. There were several over the years that hadn't been reported, which would be reported later. VPD responded by saying that they had added additional officers to the case, bringing the total, the Project Amelia, they added additional officers to the case, bringing the total number of officers working it to 2. Mm. They said there's no indication of a serial killer being responsible.
Jesus. This is like Baghdad Bob during Operation Iraqi Freedom.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Wait, this is 97. I wonder if he was part of the Vancouver Police Department and then after this case broke, he got ran out. He just hauled ass because he was so embarrassed and went over to Iraq and got hired by Saddam Hussein.
Yeah. There was a second person hiding in that hole with him.
There are no Americans, no bombs.
There are no weapons of mass destruction.
Baghdad Bob was hilarious. I wonder if he was captured or if he was killed or if he escaped.
I don't know. Maybe faked his death or something. Wandered off.
If they did capture him, as they were dragging him away, he's like, "You are not real. There are no Americans."
Yeah.
You are a figment of my imagination. I can't see you. You're not real. Baghdad Bob. July 28th, 1998, a call came into the VPD from a man named Bill Hiscox. He said that he had worked for Dave Pickton the previous year and had gotten to know Willie and described him as a strange and weird character. A. His cock is no angel.
Jeez, I bet he was freaking ripped as a child.
No kidding.
God.
I'm not even trying to make fun of his name, and I'm jumbling it.
Yeah.
But he and Lisa Yelds knew each other, and she describes him as a very dangerous man. And she was the one who introduced him to the Picktons after he had come to her, telling her about how hard up he was. And Lisa said that he knew somebody that she knew somebody that he could work for.
Hmm.
So Hiscox told him.
We just cannot do this with a straight face.
No.
That's why we had comedy in with the title.
Can you imagine one of those serious podcasts going over this guy's name? On July 28, 1998, a call came into from the VP to the VPD from a man named Bill Hiscox. He said that he had worked for Dave Pickton.
Who was he? He was a chicken farmer.
Did he run? I wonder if he was part of the cockfights.
Stranger things have happened.
Hiscox told them that he had seen all sorts of women's clothing, purses, and IDs scattered all around Willie's trailer. And he started to think that Willie could be responsible for the missing women. Then the attempted murder of Sandra Gale Ringwald happened, and he then said that Lisa Yelds had talked about all the clothes and IDs. He pointed out that Willie had tried to kill a prostitute and had beaten the charge. And he also said that they had 25 acres of land.
Wow.
Yeah, draw your own, make the connection here, make the connection.
Yeah.
I mean, later in the episode, Rossmo's gonna, Bill Rossmo, when he comes back, he's gonna point out, it's like, hey, this many people going missing. He's not dumping the bodies everywhere. He's dumping the bodies in one specific place. Either like out in the wilderness or maybe on his own property if he has large property.
25 acres, man. You do a lot with that.
But yeah, I mean, Rossmo's a freaking rock star. He's the Canadian John Douglas. But VPD said that they'd check it out. They didn't, and when Hiscox asked why, they said that they really couldn't go out there based on assumptions.
What?
Yeah. I mean, if I call the police and I say, hey, I think my neighbor is killing people and this is why, they're at least going to go knock on the door and talk to the dude.
Yeah. I mean, you work on assumptions. That's what you're investigating. You go, well, I assume this may have happened. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
And if people are coming to you, if multiple people are coming to you and saying, hey, this guy is doing this, you're definitely going to check it out. One person, yeah, you're going to go knock on the door and talk to him. But if multiple people, like there are in this case, multiple people are saying, hey, check this guy out.
Yeah.
There's really nothing there. Not Willie. No serial killer. Nope. But this was 1998, and Willie wasn't even arrested until 2002.
What would they have said if someone had seen him killing somebody?
Put a knife in that.
You're kidding.
No.
Okay. Putting a knife in that. Putting a knife in that. All right. If you want to be a serial killer, start a cult or a drug gang and go to Canada.
But not a Hell's Angels chapter.
Hell's Angels are running wild in this case too.
Yeah, but this is on the West Coast. East Coast, on the East Coast, they'll lay the smackdown on the Hell's Angels. As we learned in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Don't ever say that we're giving Canada the cold shoulder. At this point in CKCB history, we've covered more Canada cases than any other country other than the United States.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
I had no idea. I knew that Pickton would be a 3-parter. I didn't think it would be a 4-parter. I definitely didn't think it would be a 5-parter. It'd be 2.5 months in Canada. At least an entire month just on Willie Pickton.
Oh yeah. Gives it just enough time before the snowbirds come down to Florida.
You mean the Canadian geese?
Yeah.
They're already here. They
Yeah.
some of them stay here.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, screw that. I ain't going back up north.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we talked about the Canadian geese in another episode.
Wow.
I think it was part 1.
Yes. Yep.
But another article went out, and the VPD doubled down, denying that there was a serial killer, even saying that that the women that gone missing could still be alive.
Ooh. They came back from their cruise.
Oh boy! They also announced that their new investigation with their 2-man task force, and then added that Kim Rossmo would be joining it. But one inspector, Fred Biddlecombe, he said that the investigation was a waste of time, saying there was lots of reasons the women could be gone. They could have moved somewhere else with a new identity. They could have gone to the U.S. They could have gotten married and not wanted anybody to know what was going on. They could have committed suicide.
Man. There are no American soldiers in Baghdad. There are no bombs.
I'm surprised CNN didn't offer old Fred a job as an anchor after all that spin.
More Saddam Hussein's propaganda department. Let's print a new poster.
We'll print 2 this time. Kim Rossmo got back September 20th and started going over the files. And after going over every single case with a fine-tooth comb for 2 days straight, he met with McKay, Dunn, and Dixon, and he said statistically there was something there. He said there's a good chance that there's a serial killer at work here. He also said they'd have to catch it before a body is found, so that he himself wouldn't be able to disappear. Like, get the hell out of town.
Yeah.
So they went to work, and the VPD was under new leadership, but nothing changed. The new police chief was treated like an outsider, and he soon kicked the missing women task force back to the basement and put a new officer in charge of it. He then passed the Project Amelia task force to take a guess.
Not Fred Biddlecombe.
Yeah, Baghdad Bob himself. The investigation was dead in the water at that point. Rossmo and the 2-man crew, they tried to work with him, and he just yelled at them, "How dare you try to tell me how to do my job?" Well, if you would do your job, then we wouldn't have a problem. Now, would we, asshole?
Right? God dang. Do your job, for Christ's sake. I'm not telling you how. Just telling you, get off your ass and do it.
Well, one good thing did come of this case. After this case was finished and Willie Pickton was put away, the RCMP basically forced the VPD to majorly overhaul how they treat sex workers in Vancouver. So, yeah, at least there's a little bit of silver lining there.
Yeah.
But Rossmo wasn't fazed by this at all, and he drafted a statement about a serial killer, and the department threw it in the trash. I mean, Rossmo was a star in the behavioral science at that point, and Baghdad Biddlecombe was having his precious little pride hurt by him, and he got his way. I think he's compensating for something.
Yeah.
Yeah. He probably had a little biddle.
Yeah.
But the VPD did tell reporters that a new working group called Project Amelia was looking into the disappearances headed by Rossmo. Its purpose was to look into the disappearances and see if there was anything linking them all.
But not a serial killer.
But not a serial killer. Nope.
No.
There are no Americans in Baghdad. I can't.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Starting in late September, 6 more women would disappear in 1998. 31-year-old Julie Louise Young, and there's nothing known about her other than she was in downtown East Side and she lived there. Lincoln Clark had taken her picture just before she had vanished.
Wow.
In an alternate universe, Lincoln Clark is a serial killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thought just, that's Hollywood though.
Yeah.
That's Hollywood, but Lincoln Clark is a good dude. But I'm just saying, it's just like,
yeah, that's the twist in a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Lincoln Clark, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Angela Jardine, who was well known in downtown East Side, and her father worked in the mines and he made good money. She didn't fit in as a teen and she fell into a bad crowd and she was rebelling. And she had been placed in foster care, but when she turned 18, the government put her in government housing. 2 weeks later, she ran away from that place and wound up in downtown East Side. Her family tried to reason with her, but she actually fit in downtown East Side. She worked, and she did lots of community events as well. But when she disappeared on November 10th, 1998, she was getting ready to take part in a play at the community center. Yeah, sounds like she just has probably had some mental, a little bit of mental illness going on there, but she was still managing to hold herself together.
Yeah.
Despite the situation that she put herself in.
Yeah, using the arts, drama as a way to get away from it.
Yep, to cope.
Yeah.
12 days later, 30-year-old Tanya Colleen Emery disappeared. She didn't live in downtown East Side, and she wasn't a sex worker, but she liked to hang out there, and she would hitchhike to and from there. Easy pickings for Willie.
Yeah.
Have you ever hitchhiked?
No.
I have a couple times.
Yeah.
One time I was driving down Courtney Parkway in Merritt Island, and I saw this was at night, and I saw this woman hitchhiking, and at first I thought that she was a friend of mine. So I pull over. I'm like 16 or 17 years old at this point. So I pull over and she hops in the car and I immediately realize that's not my friend. That's not who I thought it was. But she was she was drunk, she was baked, she was she basically made me take her over to Cocoa Beach, and she kept reaching into her purse. She's like, "You need to take me to Straw Hat." Straw Hat was I don't know if it's still there, but that bar has always had a very rough reputation. And yeah, she kept reaching, like putting her hand in her purse and saying, "Yeah, you're going to take me there." I don't know if she had a gun or a knife, but I wasn't going to find out.
Right.
So I took her there, and at that point she's like, "Do you want a date? You want to get into a motel?" I said, "I thought you wanted to go to Straw Hat." That was the last time I picked up a hitchhiker.
Yeah.
But I have hitchhiked a time or two, like when my car broke down.
Yeah.
Yeah. 19-year-old Michelle Gurney was a native of the Nisga'a Nation. Got to be really careful how you say that. Nisgaa. You got to be really careful how you say that.
Nisga'a.
But she had a son, and it's not known how she wound up in downtown East Side, but she vanished on December 11th. December 27th, 27-year-old Marcella Creisen vanished around 2 a.m. She had just been released from jail on prostitution charges, and then the next day she was supposed to be at her family's home so that they could give her a late Christmas celebration, but she never made it.
Oh.
The last of 1998 was 37-year-old Ruby Ann Hardy. The exact date that she vanished isn't known, but it was in December, and she was a native from the Lake Helen First Nation and Red Rock Band in Nipigon, Ontario.
Mm.
Also, late in 1998, Willie tried to make it 7 in 2 months. Late one night, 27-year-old Giselle Iverson was working when Willie tried to get her come back to the farm. She saw him and recognized him as a regular, and she went over to talk to him, but she noticed a rope and stiletto-heeled shoe in the back seat, and she changed her mind. Yeah, Willie tried to tell her that the other girls would vouch for him, but she still said no. She wasn't buying his story. So Willie just handed her some money and drove off. Just like, oh, all right, well, here you go anyway. He's trying to soften her up is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He was on a mission with her. 2 weeks later, she ran into him again, and he tried again. She still said no because she was afraid of him, and rightfully so. Once again, he handed her some money, and then took off. And she tried.
I'm wondering if all the workers and stuff like that were kind of like talking amongst themselves and having little discussions, going, I think Willie is a part of this, And
they definitely were. I mean, the Sandra Ringwald and Tracy Byan, the ones that were actually at his place that escaped. Tracy Byan, he sliced the buttons off of her shirt and then just took her back without incident. But Sandra Ringwald, he tried to kill her. He gutted her.
Yeah.
And they're talking.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I think I brought this up in the last episode, and I think it comes up later on in this one too, but he wound up only targeting the girls that were like really bad off, that like super addicted.
Mm.
They'd be more likely to come with him, because he's offered drugs free.
Yeah.
But Giselle tried to warn the other girls about her bad feeling about Willie, and some listened and some didn't. And the ones that didn't, well, I'm not going to say it. Scott Chubb suggested that Willie was killing the women, and he says that he told Dave about his suspicions in early 1999. He also knew that Bill Hiscox had his suspicions as well, and like I said, Hiscox even called the police about it. Everybody around the farm knew about what had happened with Sandra Ringwald, and everybody knew about the purses and women's clothes and stuff, and all in Willie's trailer. And of course, everybody knew about Willie's skills as a butcher.
Yeah.
To clarify, in part 2, I said that Dave didn't know that Willie was doing this. I meant up to that point.
Hmm.
Dave knew, and he didn't do anything. And Chubb was afraid of Dave and Dave was also his meal ticket. But Dave had problems of his own because the city had finally put an injunction on Piggy's Palace after a New Year's Eve blowout, and there were at least 1,500 people crammed into that building.
I'm sure even Willie thought it smelled bad in there.
Yeah. Lots of body odor. Well, all they had to do was open the doors up. It's January, so it's cold outside. Maybe it wasn't all that bad. But still, it would have, that many people all crammed together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave ignored the injunction. He also ignored Chubb about Willie, and on January 16th, 1999, 22-year-old Jacqueline McDonald disappeared. She had done quite well in high school, but she got pregnant and quit school. And she loved her baby girl, and she got assistance, and she got a waitressing job. And she was doing pretty well until she hooked up with a man who was a druggie. Before too long, she was hooked too, and she lost her baby and wound up in downtown East Side. She had been regularly checking in with the Wish House, but in January, she never showed up again. Now, Gina Houston, the not a prostitute, the con woman.
Yeah.
She was now a fixture on the farm, helping the Picktons find more workers. She brought a friend, Lynn Ellingson, to the farm, and she was on downtown East Side because she had to escape from a very abusive boyfriend, Ron Maynard. Ron would show up at the farm from time to time but he always behaved himself at the farm because, like all men who abuse women, he wouldn't do it in front of anybody else.
Yeah.
She was on drugs, but she wasn't a sex worker though. But it likely wouldn't be long before she would have had to start doing it. She met Gina, who told them about the Picktons, and before too long, Lynn was employed and living in the spare room of Willie's trailer. And the first thing that she did was clean the trailer.
Yeah.
Then she began doing office work for Dave, and she and the other workers would do drugs together too. Next came Andy Bellwood, and he was a crack addict, and he needed work, and Gina brought him to the farm. He was hired to do odd jobs and to help with the pigs, and he would also wind up in the trailer sleeping on the couch. He and Lynn even hooked up a couple of times. Wow. Soon after, 31-year-old Brenda Ann Wolfe disappeared from downtown East Side, and her story is basically the same as all the others, except Brenda was a tough woman, as in not afraid to fight a man.
Yeah.
She was evicted from her place March 24th, but her parents, who were raising her two kids, had been trying to reach her unsuccessfully since February 17th. Now we're going to talk about things that should have gotten Willie caught. We've talked about how sly he was in getting girls from downtown East Side without being seen, but at home was a completely different story. In his hunting grounds, he was careful, and at home, let's just say he was lucky because of people's willingness to look away.
Mm.
That, combined with the less than professional attitude of the Vancouver Police Department.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Uh-huh.
When Willie knew somebody, he wound up with a case of word vomit. For example, Andy Bellwood. He and Willie got close. They started becoming friends, and they'd be hanging out and everything, hanging out in the trailer after work and everything. But one time, Willie asked Andy if he wanted to go get a hooker. Andy said no, and then Willie proceeded to tell Andy everything. He reached under his mattress and pulled out a pair of handcuffs, a belt, and a wire with a handle on each end, piano wire.
Ooh. Ah. What is that?
A garrote.
Yeah, a garrote.
Yeah. The garrote phantom. Oh, BTK. He said it looked like piano wire, and he continued saying that he would pick up these women downtown, lure them in with drugs and money. He said they were nervous about leaving downtown East Side, but the hardcore druggies would always agree to go to the farm for drugs. He said he would bring them to his room and get them on the bed and make them do doggy style. And while doing her from behind, he would quickly grab their hands and pull them to their backs and then cuff them and strangle them. He even demonstrated it as if there was an invisible woman on the bed.
Wow.
He said he would finish while they were cuffed, and then he would whisper to them that everything would be all right. Then, when finished, he would strangle them. And then he remarked about how much people bleed and said that he would drag them out to the barn and that pigs would eat anything of the human remains. And what they didn't eat, he would scoop into barrels with the pig waste that would go to West Coast reduction.
Damn. No wonder he never used his own pigs for the roast.
Yeah.
Or pig roast, anyway.
He didn't want to feed his friends human meat.
And this guy didn't go to the police.
Nope. And you're about to find out why.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, in part 4, we're gonna talk about the implications about what actually went out to people for consumption as far as pork mixed with human. But Lynn Ellingson was there for the conversation too and heard every word. Willie trusted her, and when Willie was done asking, telling Andy about his process, he then asked if Andy wanted to go get a hooker. He asked Andy again. He was freaked out, and he said no, he wasn't into all that. And a couple of days later, Willie was regretting telling Andy, so he went to Lynn saying that Andy had been stealing his tools and that maybe she should arrange a meetup between him and her ex, Ron Maynard, so that Annie would, get the message.
Mm.
Ron agreed, and he brought a friend of his to the farm.
Why was Lynn okay with that?
I'm getting to that.
Mm.
Andy showed up from a delivery, and Ron and Ross, Ron's friend, were waiting for him. And Willie was cleaning a pig, and Ron asked Andy to come with them. And they explained that Willie suspected he was stealing tools, and they wanted to search his room. Andy said no problem, but when they got to his room, there were tools in the closet.
Planted in the closet.
Yep. They proceeded to beat the snot out of him, and the whole time he was insisting he hadn't stolen anything. And when they were done, Willie showed up saying that he better hope no more tools go missing.
Yeah, you got the message, all right.
Yep. And Andy hauled ass after that.
I bet. I would.
Bill Hiscock's report to the police wasn't completely ignored. Two RCMP officers, Ron Palta and Diane McDaniel, contacted Lisa Yelds to ask her questions about Willie, but Lisa didn't trust the police and she wasn't talking. I don't think I'd trust these police either.
No.
Although Lisa said that she wasn't surprised. She was sure that Willie was responsible for some of the disappearances, and she was also sure that some of the pork that went out had humans remain in it. And she had come down with hepatitis C and thought that that's how she had gotten it. From eating pork with hepatitis infected human meat.
Wonder how much of the general population contracted Hep C.
That's something that I've never heard. That's I'm gonna look for that information when I start writing part 4.
Yeah, I wonder. I am not sure. Maybe someone can answer this, but I wonder if you can contract it by ingestion.
I don't know. I don't even know what Hep C is. I mean, I know it's a disease, but that's about all I know about it. Lynn had heard the rumors, and she asked Dave about it, and she had heard that there were body parts in the freezers. And Dave replied by pinning her up against the wall and slapping the shit out of her. She tried to split, but Dave followed her into the next room. And now we have a second potted plant meeting its demise after being thrown out of Pickton. She grabbed it and flung it at him, and she missed it, but it went through a window. Dave told Willie that she had to go, but Willie told her just to stay out of Dave's way. Shortly later, Willie asked Lynn if she wanted to go out for dinner, and she agreed. They headed out and ate, and when they left, Willie was driving erratically, and he was pulled over. And once the officer realized that Willie wasn't drunk, she let him go. Lynn wanted drugs, so Willie headed into downtown Eastside to get some cocaine for her, but Willie decided that he wanted a hooker. So he drove up to one and called her over, and she came up and she saw the crack pipe in Lynn's hand, and he asked her if she wanted to come party with them, and she agreed, and she climbed in, and Willie stopped and got even more drugs, and they headed back to the farm. Lynn and the woman were having fun, and Willie was in a good mood too. They got to Willie's trailer and they partied inside some more, and then Willie was ready for some loving, for some pig grinding. So he and the he he and the woman went into Willie's room, and Lynn went to her room. And then later, she heard a ruckus.
Could you describe the ruckus?
It was a loud ruckus and a scream. And Lynn went outside to Willie's room, and it was empty. And she looked outside, she saw a light on in the barn, and went to check it out. Now, Lynn survives this.
Okay, good.
Yeah. You looked a little worried there.
I was concerned.
Princess Bride. We got Breakfast Club and Princess Bride. She got to the door and she saw legs and feet dangling. She screamed Willie's name, and Willie came up from behind her and grabbed her arm and pulled her into the barn and closed the door. And there she got a better look, and the legs were there and the toenails were painted. And she started dry heaving, and she looked up and she saw the rest of the body, the woman's body, hanging from the chain that Willie used for butchering. And there was blood everywhere. And Willie just said that it was all right, and she was just a pig anyway. He cut it into her, and he pulled something out and threw it into a bucket. And she looked into the bucket and saw a big old clump of hair in there too. So Willie was scalping these women before making that cut.
Damn.
Willie said that it would be all right. She was just a pig, and he cut it. And I already said that. He told her, "You say one word to anybody, and you'll be right there beside her." And she swore that she wouldn't say a word. All she wanted was dope and booze. Willie then walked her to the trailer, and she said that she wanted to go. And Willie gave her $100 and called her a cab, and he said he'd pick her up the next day. The next day, she called Willie and said she was getting back together with Ron Maynard, but that was a lie. But she was scared, and rightfully so. But she wound up going back to the farm, and she overdosed at the farm a couple of times and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. And there is record of that. Even though she says that she didn't go back, she never went back, but there's record of her going to the hospital from the farm.
Letting her leave that night had to have been a power move.
I'll say it sure was. He's basically daring her to say something, knowing full well that she wouldn't.
Yeah. Huh.
Around the same time, 35-year-old Georgina Papin, let's go with Papin. Yeah, she disappeared, and she was a native from the Cree Nation, and she had 7 kids who were living with her. 2 people later reported seeing her with Willie. Maggie Giselle, a sex worker in downtown Eastside, and Scott Chubb, too. Giselle knew her, and Chubb recognized her, saying that he saw her in Willie's truck when he ran into Willie at a Money Mart, because he and Willie both had mailboxes there. So, March 2nd, 1999, Vancouver Police Department Chief Constable Bruce Chambers finally addressed the press, and he said that there was, in fact, a serial killer in the area, that he was requesting all available resources from the RCMP and the Canadian BSU, and they would not stop until this killer was apprehended. No. This is what he said. Take it, Paul.
All right. We keep reviewing this because we hear the concern from the community. But we've found nothing that would indicate there's a serial killer involved in these missing people.
Yeah. Bite me, Bruce.
Nothing indicates a serial killer. Jeez. Freaking
starting to wonder if I'm going to be do you think we're going to be allowed in Vancouver after this? Hell, after the entire Canada binge. I managed to find the stories that really paint their law enforcement in a negative light.
We'll have probably a very small niche of people that, that'll invite us into their homes.
Yeah.
But don't walk the streets.
For a pork sandwich.
Yeah.
You want to come over with some maple syrup cured ham? Eh?
Some Canadian bacon.
Canadian bacon? Do they call it Canadian bacon or they just call it ham?
To me, it's ham.
It is ham.
Yeah.
But do Canadians call it Canadian bacon? Or is that just a U.S. thing?
It's probably a U.S. thing. I don't think they call it Canadian bacon. I don't know. It don't matter anymore because I don't eat pork.
But I don't either. I'm allergic to it. But there was that movie with The Rock in it. He's talking about all those Brazilian nuts when he was in Brazil, and the woman's like, we don't call them Brazilian nuts. We just call them nuts. I can't remember. I can't remember what movie that was, but it was one of the Rock's early movies. The handful of people working on Project Amelia were getting discouraged, and by now the Willie Pickton rumors were coming in regularly, but old Bruce wasn't having it. You know, the Dick Darwin character, he's a joke and all, but this guy is Dick Darwin. I mean, Kim Rossmo was monitoring everything, and he had a constable slipping him information, and he took great interest in what Bill Hiscox had to say, as well as Sandra Ringwald's story. He thought Willie Pickton was a strong candidate to be the VPD's non-existent serial killer. And he suggested surveillance, but warned that it would be expensive and would require a lot of people. VPD would never agree to this, so the mole went to the Port Coquitlam office of the RCMP, where they assigned several constables to watch Willie. One of them was a student of Rossmo, and they were told to watch him and stop him if they ever saw him try to pick a woman up. So they watched him for 2 weeks, and they came up with nothing. No women disappeared during that time. And one of the constables thought that Willie had made them early on. And that's why no women disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, that in itself is a freaking clue.
Yeah.
You know, we're watching him. He knows it, and nobody disappears. But it occurred to Rossmo that Willie had been arrested for the assault on Sandra, and they had taken a DNA sample. Now, DNA was found on the 3 women who were found dead in the woods a while back, and they tested it against Willie, and it was not a match.
Did they have DNA on Gary Ridgway?
The Canadians didn't, but I'm sure that the Americans did. The Canadians probably wouldn't have even asked about Ridgway from the United States. I mean, they had Charles Ng in custody for a lesser crime in Canada. Yeah, Charles Ng was in California, him and Leonard Lake, but they had him in custody, and getting them to extradite him to the U.S. to stand trial for multiple murders was like pulling teeth. Yeah, they didn't want to send him, and this was in Vancouver too.
Yeah,
they didn't want. He was facing the death penalty in the United States, and Canada strongly doesn't believe in the death penalty. So, it's really interesting. Really interesting. And finally, the Americans they're just like, all right, keep him. You keep him, but you know what? That whatever charge that is that you've got him in there for, that sentence is going to end, and he's going to be out on your streets.
Yep.
So keep him. They extradited him back to the U.S. But they probably didn't even ask the U.S. about Gary Ridgway, even after the downtown East Side map was found in Ridgway's truck.
Mm-hmm.
But the shenanigans continued, and the higher-ups in the RCMP decided it wasn't possible for there to be 2 serial killers at work, even though the DNA didn't match Willie.
3 dead women in the woods. 3 makes a serial killer.
Yeah, but they basically ruled out Willie by saying that there was no way that they had 2 serial killers. No, this is our guy. The guy that did this, he did it. So now they're admitting that there is a serial killer? See, they're back and forth. They're not. There's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. None.
Yeah. God.
They said that they didn't even have enough evidence to get a search warrant. But what the VPD did do was issue a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and convictions of persons responsible for the rash of home invasion and arson in the rich neighborhoods. So you can imagine how well that went over with the victims' families.
Yeah.
A reporter asked Mayor Philip Owen why there was no reward for information leading to the arrest of the serial killer. And he said, what?
There's no evidence that a serial killer is at work. No bodies have been found. The police have a procedure for homicides and missing people, and they are following it. I don't think it's appropriate for a big reward for a location service.
God. Yeah.
Jeez.
There was backlash over this, like serious backlash.
Oh, I bet.
And from Vancouver citizens who did not live in downtown East Side, the one that the police actually care about. It even got to the point to where some officers were beginning to think that Kim Rossmo was right. VPD reluctantly began beefing up Project Amelia. And in a stroke of coincidence or strategery or even karma, the Daily Telegraph in Britain released an article praising Rossmo's geographic profiling software to help solve serial killer cases. British Columbia Business Magazine chose Rossmo as one of the most outstanding Vancouverites of the year for his work in law enforcement. Law enforcement. And pointed out that his system had been used in over 1,400 cases around the world. Similar articles ran in Toronto, Montreal, Ontario, even in U.S. newspapers as well. If VPD was Gozer the Godarian, Kim Rossmo was the Ghostbusters. Around the same time, friends and families of the missing women organized a rally led by the DeVries family. And relatives, friends, children of missing women, even politicians, social workers, native elders, reporters, citizens who were just concerned, they all gathered outside the First United Church in downtown Eastside for a memorial service, with family members speaking about their loved ones, pictures of every single missing woman, flowers, group prayer, even a candle lighting ceremony where there was a candle lit for every single missing woman, and it was done one at a time with the name of each woman called out as each candle was lit. Everybody there sang Amazing Grace together. Between 300 and 400 people turned out, and the ceremony lasted over 3 hours. People were holding signs that said, "Our women are not disposable." And of course, some of the speakers told exactly what they thought of VPD and the mayor.
Oh, I bet you this happened during an election year.
I tell you what, I would have liked to have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that, it's just if I had been living there at the time, I probably would have attended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But finally, Rossmo was back, and there was nothing VPD could do about it. And with the new information he now said it wasn't possible. He now said it wasn't possible that there was a serial killer. Now it was probable. And on May 27th, 1999, he announced his findings, and it wasn't good news. Take it, Paul.
Based on historical data, we can expect to locate no more than 2 individuals from this group. While it is not possible with available information to determine with certainty the cause of these disappearances, the most likely explanation for the majority of them is a single murderer or partner, murderers preying on Skid Row prostitutes.
And the mayor said, "See, this guy's full of crap. Skid Row's in Los Angeles." I'm kidding. But it wouldn't have surprised me.
Yeah.
That mayor? Chucklehead. He said there were three possibilities. They could have either been killed by one serial killer, a group of serial killers, or by different people. But based on the information that had been presented, they were looking for one killer or a team of them. And he reasoned that if it was different people, bodies would have been found.
Mm.
He said that his conclusion was that it was one serial killer, and he was disposing of bodies in one location because multiple locations would increase the likelihood of discovery. He also said that the likely dump site would either be in the wilderness areas or on the killer's property if he loaned a large piece of property. And it would be somebody local who knew the lay of the land really well.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, this guy's like John Douglas's twin brother.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look for like on YouTube. I wonder if there was like a forum discussion between Rossmo and Douglas. You know, I'd like to see those two bounce ideas off of each other. That would be awesome. His findings were submitted to 3 senior VPD officers, and they still concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to say that there was a serial killer on the loose. But they did assign 2 senior homicide investigators to help Project Amelia. They were still trying to run Rossmo out of town, but they didn't realize that a major reinforcement for Rossmo was on its way. On July 22nd, 1999, America's Most Wanted ran a story about a modern day Jack the Ripper on the loose in downtown East Side, and the VPD was pissed.
Jack the Ripper only killed 5 people, but I get the point.
Yeah, like a ghost that nobody can find.
Yeah,
you know. John Walsh shortly later came to town, and the politicians ordered the VPD to cooperate with them. John Walsh, with the Attorney General, announced a $100,000 reward for the information leading to the capture of the serial killer. And once again, one senior officer, John Unger, said at the this is what he said at the press conference: "Take it.
The best outcome we could have is that every one of these missing women would phone us and say, 'Here I am. I don't wish to make it publicly known where I am, but I want you to know that I am safe and sound.'" What a chucklehead.
Hey, that's my word. There are so many people on the Pickton's farm that could have claimed that money.
Oh, yeah.
But Project Amelia began trying to find DNA samples from the women, hairbrushes, other personal items, even used syringes, and the sex workers helped them get these things to them. And now the sex workers thought that they were getting somewhere, and they were willing to help the police, something that 2 months ago would have been unheard of. Willie was laying low at this point, and Bill Hiscox and Lisa Yelds and another person known to have had ties, Wayne Ling, they've all been interviewed, but in the summer of 1999, they had another name, Lynn Ellingson. She hadn't told the police about her experience with Willie in the barn, but she had told a couple of friends. And people talked to her on August 8th, but she denied everything, and she was obviously scared of the Picktons if she told, but it later came out that Willie was paying her good money to stay quiet.
That's a risky move on so many different levels.
It is. I mean, that's like poking a bear with a twig.
Yeah.
Or a moose.
Yeah.
Hey, Rocky. But later in 1999, she did start talking to the police about Willie, and in true VPD fashion, they decided that what she had to say wasn't enough to waste any time on him. Remember, they had spent 2 weeks watching him, and they didn't see him do anything. Plus, they had their guy, if in fact it was a serial killer. Well, Now they knew that Willie wasn't their guy. DNA proved it. Willie Pickton, he's just a strange guy, but definitely not a serial killer. Sure, he had ripped the guts out of a woman who survived, but she didn't show up to testify, so it had to have been self-defense on Willie's part. We've got to figure out, eh? We don't need some hotshot profiler. We know our shitty, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
God, there's like we didn't see him do it. Oh man. Project Amelia continued to do its best, but VPD shut them down every time they brought something to them. And whenever a family member tried to, would contact the VPD, they would be transferred back to the officers in Project Amelia. Talk about passing the buck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like talk to these people that we keep them in the basement. Talk to them, even though we're not going to let them do anything with what you tell them.
Mm-hmm.
But now Willie was back. November 22nd, 1999, 43-year-old Wendy Crawford disappeared. 2 of her brothers had died when she was younger, and she never recovered. She had started sniffing glue as a teen, and that escalated. She became a single mom to 2 kids, and the spiral continued, and she wound up in downtown East Side. She was also a diabetic with Crohn's disease. And despite all that, she owned a mobile home, and she supported her children, and they lived there with her.
Mm.
So she was just another one that, she's there, but she's making it.
Yeah.
Mm. December 27th, 1999, 28-year-old Jennifer Firminger disappeared. And she was a native who was put up for adoption as a baby. And she was a Brownie Scout, then a Girl Scout. She had a loving relationship with her adopted parents, but as a teen, her dark skin became an issue, to her because she was teased about it, especially considering her adopted parents were white. By 1989, she was in downtown East Side. A couple days later, on New Year's Eve, the Picton's annual New Year's Eve party was going off, and the police arrived, and everybody thought that they were going to shut down the party. They didn't. They were actually there to arrest Willie. They did. And I said that the police didn't shut the party down. They didn't. But the fire marshal, however, did, because there were over 1,700 people at the party, and Piggy's Palace was way over capacity. RCMP later got a court order against the Picton saying that the police could arrest anybody for being at Piggy's Palace for any reasons. They didn't shut it down, but they did make it a dangerous place for you to be if you didn't want to be arrested. The Pictons also lost their tax-exempt status to boot.
Ooh.
It was like, we're not going to shut it down, but we're going to make it impossible for you to run it. Yeah. But that's the RCMP. That's not VPD.
Mm-hmm.
RCMP, they're suspect as well in this, but they're nowhere near the level that VPD is as far as how all of this case was was handled and everything.
Yeah.
But Willie was released. No evidence. You can probably imagine that the Project Amelia officers probably wanted to quit, and I wouldn't blame them if they did.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're hiring me to paint a building, and every time I paint a wall, you throw paint thinner on it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, fuck you. That's a pretty good analogy too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or painting a building while it's raining.
Yeah. How do buildings get painted in Seattle?
I don't know.
It rains there all the time.
Right? Maybe that's where vinyl wrap came from.
Yeah. Maybe one of our listeners in Seattle, because we have more listeners in Seattle than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Let us know. Still blows my mind we have more Seattle of all places. Not
Yeah.
knocking Seattle at all. I'm just saying that was unexpected.
Yeah.
We know where, it would make sense for us to do our first live event at.
Exactly. That's one place in the country I haven't been. Pacific Northwest.
I've been there. I've just never been to Seattle.
Yeah.
I've been to I've been to Vancouver, Washington,
Mm.
and I've been to name's right on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
It's right across the border from Idaho.
Okay.
What's the name of it? Oh well, I've been to Portland, Oregon. Portland's beautiful.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that whole area is freaking nice.
Yeah.
Oh, every time I think about that area, it always reminds me of that scene in God. See, now I can't even remember the name of the movie.
Avatar.
Or the television show. Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
How the FBI agent's like, those are not beautiful trees. What kind of trees are those? Oh, those are Douglas firs.
If we ever do an event in Seattle, I'm gonna want to go across the border and downtown East Side just to take it in.
Yeah.
I'll do it during broad daylight though. I'm not going there.
Yeah. If it is at night, there's an entourage.
Yeah. But it was starting to look like the only way VPD was going to call Willie a murderer would be if the chief personally witnessed him kill a woman. And even if he did, he'd say that there wasn't enough evidence because the police didn't see Willie pick the woman up.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, speaking of Dick Darwin, the case that the episode where Dick Darwin premiered was the episode 66, I believe, and it was the only unsolved case that CKCB's ever done, and it was the murder of Katrina Mowry, and she was found in a trunk, wrapped up in a blanket with with a belt around her neck.
Whoa!
And they listed it. This is in Dallas, and they listed it as a suicide. And they initially listed it as a suicide, and they said, well, we can't call it a murder because we don't know who put her in there.
Oh my God!
And that was the episode that gave life to Dick Darwin, Dallas Detective.
Oh man!
Yeah, the only unsolved case we've ever done. Oh, remind me. Speaking of unsolved cases, remind me to talk to you when we're done. I have a thought about something.
All right.
But during the year 2000, Willie was laying low again, and he was worried about Lynn. And afterwards, he told Scott Chubb that she had cost him $10,000 so far. And according to Chubb, they were clearing some land together, and Willie asked him to basically take Lynn out. They offered him $1,000 to do it, and he suggested a way to do it too. He's like, put antifreeze or Windex into a syringe and stick them, and they would die right away. He said he knew from personal experience that worked, and that the police would see the needle mark and think that she had died of a heroin overdose. But Chubb didn't take the offer. But remember when I said that she had been overdosed twice on the property and been taken to the hospital?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have even had to inject her with anything. He could have just not called the ambulance and just let her die.
Yeah.
So this is Willie logic. I don't know. But Chubb did notice that Willie had lots of guns that he kept in his trailer, but put a knife in that.
It's Y2K time.
Well, this is a knife. This is the first knife that isn't going to be removed during the same episode. Pull this knife out in part 4 or part 5.
Yeah.
It'd be part 4. Yeah, when this knife is removed. Yeah, we've never left a knife in to the next episode before. This is a notable event for CKCB history.
Oh, yeah. It's the first. It's the first.
The year 2000 had closed out with no more disappearances, and 2001 had been quiet most of the year. No disappearances, and nobody knew what to make of that. Like, did the killer quit? Did he die? Did he relocate? But the sex workers knew. Willie was still seen around downtown East Side. He still had runs up to West Coast Reduction, and he would still cruise the Strip. He just wasn't picking anything up because, at this point, he's, everybody knows, even VPD knows, but they're pretending like they don't.
Yeah.
In August, the bug hit him once again, and he spotted 35-year-old Katrina Murphy. Now, Willie didn't know what he was dealing with here. Katrina was not a bank robber, or she was not a sex worker. She was a bank robber. And so was her husband. And her husband was in prison, and she was out on bail awaiting trial. She was known as the Ma Barker of Canada. Katrina had just been there to see him and was hitchhiking back home when Willie spotted her in downtown East Side. And he was driving a van, and Willie pulled over and offered her a ride. The van was filthy and it stunk. And she opened the door, and she kind of noticed the door handle on the inside was gone. Ted Bundy trick there. And the windows were painted black. The back windows, they're spray painted black. She asked him where he was headed. He said Port Coquitlam, and she said that her stop was on the way. He could just drop her off. Willie agreed. And she asked what Willie did for a living, and he said that he was a carpet installer. She's like, okay, well, what was the smell? Willie said that he had just taken some stuff to the rendering plant. So he said, my name's Willie, eh? She was nervous, so Willie offered her a joint, and she accepted. And Willie then asked her where she was coming from, and she said Kent, visiting her husband. Willie asked if her husband was in prison. She said, yeah. And then Willie said, well, then he wouldn't know if he didn't make it home tonight. Willie replied that he phones every night and told him, she's like, okay, stop. My stop's coming up. But Willie just kept going, and she screamed at him that he had missed her stop, and Willie just started laughing. And she said, it's like, if you try anything, I'm going to kill you. And he just laughed louder.
Yeah.
In the book, it's like he's just like laughing maniacally, like a freaking movie slasher, movie slasher or whatever.
Yeah.
Willie pulled into an industrial park, still laughing, and Willie found a pencil in her purse. And at that point, Willie realized he had screwed up. He was in a dead end, and he had to turn around. When he stopped and went for reverse, Katrina stabbed him in the neck with the pencil and gouged his eye with her thumb. She then jumped across his lap, opened the door, and then slid out of the van face first and landed in the gravel. And she got up and took off, and all she could hear was Willie's laughter in the background. And she looked to see if he was chasing her, and he wasn't. He was just laughing his ass off.
Damn. The heck was he on?
Nothing.
Really?
Willie was straight edge. Never drank, never did drugs, never smoked cigarettes, nothing. He drank milk. Katrina ran to a gas station nearby, and it was close enough to still see Willie's van. It hadn't moved. And the cashier asked if she was okay, and she said that she had just been attacked. And she didn't realize it until that point, but she was bleeding from the chest, collarbone, face, and arms and hands. And she had hit the gravel hard. She even had like gravel embedded in her hands.
Ooh.
It's just, but the cashier called the police, and they arrived. They ran her information, realized she had a record, but they went off to look for Willie instead. A good Samaritan offered her a ride, and before too long she was in prison for her robberies, but she was alive. And she had survived Willie, although in August, Serena Abbott's Way disappeared, Diane Rock disappeared October 19th, 2001, and Mona Wilson disappeared on November 23rd, 2001. Mona would be Willie's final victim.
Mm.
And that's how we end part 3.
Wow.
Part 4 is going to be the investigation, and leading up to how Willie eventually gets caught, and hopefully we'll cover the stupid. I mean, you think Vancouver Police Department is bad? Wait till you see the judge in this freaking case.
Yeah.
I mean, from start to finish, this thing was just. I mean, it's embarrassing how badly this was handled. You know.
I'm wondering all that crazy laughing and just I don't know. Maybe it seems like what I felt. He just got a little complacent there. Like he's just now over himself. He's like, I'm getting away with all this, blah, blah. So he's just enjoying it, laughing like the devil.
Yeah. And there could also be I don't know if this is the case. I mean, I'll find out when I start doing the research for part 4.
Yeah.
But you hear a lot of these serial killers. They'll be like, they were glad when they got caught. Like they were glad that it was finally over.
Mm.
So, but I don't know if that's the case with Willie or not. I'm betting on. I don't think that was the case. I don't think it was. I think that actually he did want to keep going because he was bummed that he didn't hit 50, the big 50 as he called it.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's like, I could see this movie, or I could see this being made into a movie, or maybe even a TV series, like on Netflix, like Netflix did with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
I mean, if done right, this would be a really compelling thing to watch. But because it's so unbelievable, just how it happened, how he was getting away with it, and how basically, culpable the VPD was in this. And I'd like to see him do it. And I heard that the next big case that they're doing, that Netflix is doing, is after the success of the Dahmer series, the next one they're going to be doing is the Menendez brothers. I'm like, why? There's plenty more. There's Willie Pickton, for example.
Yeah.
Pee Wee Gaskins would be a good one too. No, maybe not. Yeah, Pee Wee Gaskins would be a good one too. They just have to leave a couple scenes out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many. The Menendez brothers, really? I mean, I'll watch it, especially if it's the same people that made the Dahmer series, because they did a hell of a job on that. I'll watch it, but it's like, come on, this better than. It's got to be something better than the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be John Wayne Gacy, because there was that scene in the Dahmer series where they showed John Wayne Gacy dressed up as Pogo attacking somebody. It was just kind of like a side note that John Wayne Gacy had been caught around the time that Dahmer was in prison. So I thought that they were kind of signaling that they were going to do one on John Wayne Gacy, and that's one I can do without.
Yeah.
I'm in no hurry to cover John Wayne Gacy. But mainly because everybody's covered John Wayne Gacy, and me, if I do John Wayne Gacy, we're looking at probably a 5-part episode, because I don't like to leave out any of the details.
Yeah, true. Keep as many details in there as possible.
Yeah, I mean, You know, you can go listen to a podcast that does, 45 minutes to an hour on John Wayne Gacy. More power to you. But that's not what CKCB is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a movie made about Willie Pickton.
Really?
Yeah, it's bad. It's horrible. And I don't mean horrible as in like graphic or anything like that. It's just really bad.
Bad acting.
Bad story. I mean, it's for one thing, it stars Jake Busey as Willie. That's not a good casting for one thing. Jake Busey looks nothing like Willie Pickton. And they changed the names. They changed the names to it was like Peckton or something like that.
What?
And
God.
I don't know why they did that, but they had this whole thing about like this Oedipus complex with him like actually having sex with Louise.
Yeah.
And I was watching it, and 5 minutes into the movie, I knew that it was crap.
Yeah.
But there was this one scene where he was like, where it was showing like a flashback of him, with his mother, who was doing the screeching and all that stuff, and it actually showed a dick going towards her naked body.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was actually Jake Busey's dick or if it was a prosthetic, or I'm hoping it was a prosthetic, but still, right about that time, my daughter walks out of her room right when that scene is on the fucking TV.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh shit, oh God. She's like, what the hell are you watching?
Yeah. Why does shit like that gotta happen at the wrong time?
Yeah. I'm like, I had no idea that this was coming. But it really didn't. I mean, it didn't even. It had Piggy's Palace on there too. It showed Piggy's Palace, but it was basically them with a stage set up outside of the barn. That's not what Piggy's Palace was. It was a pretty happening bar.
Yeah.
It was just bad. But one thing that they did get right was the post-credit scene. When Willie's in jail, they sent an undercover officer to pose as another inmate to try and get Willie to talk.
Oh shit.
And I'm not gonna drop any spoilers or anything for those who might be unfamiliar with the story. Hopefully we talk about that in part 4. Hopefully. But they got that right. They got that 100% right.
Damn.
Yep, that's the only part of that movie that's worth watching. So if you want to watch it, just skip to the very end, go past the credits, and watch that part.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was god awful. I mean, it was just bad. I can't. I mean, Jake Busey's not exactly an A-list actor or anything like that, but he could have done better than that role.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, he looks nothing like Willie Pickton. Thanks a lot for listening. Really appreciate it. And, check us out on our socials. See, rate and review. And I'm having a complete and total brain fart here. I think I'm fried after doing that long ass episode. but yeah, hook us up with a review on Apple and on YouTube.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, comment, share.
Yeah.
And listen to this show wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Exactly. And until next time, for part 4, later.
Later.